One of the things that stands out the most about Dogman is that it looks like it was drawn by a kid, even though that's not really true. Well, sort of. But did you know there are hidden details in the world of Dogman that even hardcore fans might have missed? A lot of people don't know this, but Dogman's story was originally completely different from what we know today. Fans of the comics know that author Dave Pilkey created the character when he was in 2nd grade, around 8 years old. But if today you're seeing a half-man, half-dog police officer, you should know that wasn't the original plan for the character at all. Dave Pilkey said that back then, Dogman was just going to be a regular dog who, for some silly or weird reason, got struck by lightning and gained superpowers. Yes, the character would still be called Dogman, but there wouldn't be any human part to him. The dog's powers wouldn't even be permanent because the joke was that he would need to get struck by lightning every time he needed his powers. But that's not the path the author chose. And now we have the police officer Dogman that we all know today. But don't worry, because our plan is to show you 11 facts about Dogman that no one has ever told you before. So grab your popcorn, because it's time for another Cinewave. Have you ever noticed that all the Dogman art is really simple, but at the same time colorful and full of life? The reason behind that is actually super interesting. Dave Pilkey drew it himself. Sure, you probably knew that, but what most people don't realize is that nowadays most comics are made digitally on computers. There's a lot of amazing artwork out there, but it's fair to say that it's not truly done by hand. Dogman, though, is different. The Dogman comics are drawn the old-fashioned way, on paper. And what does that mean? Simple, that's exactly why it feels like a kid actually made it. As everybody knows, inside the Dogman universe, the real authors of the stories are George and Harold from the Captain Underpants series. And that wouldn't make sense if the artwork didn't look like something made by two kids. That's exactly why Dave Pilkey did something genius. Since he originally created Dogman back when he was a kid, he decided to draw the comics by hand on paper instead of using a digital screen, basically copying his own childhood drawing style. After the pencil and ink version is ready, then it can be scanned into a computer. Last year alone, the Dogman comics reached over 3.8 million readers worldwide, which proves the plan worked. We already told you that Dogman was a comic created by the author when he was just 8 years old, but have you ever seen the very first Dogman? We've got the picture to show you, and as you can see, the character was just an ordinary dog who probably would have been named Greg, just like Officer Knight's pet in the original story. Notice he didn't have a police uniform since he wasn't going to be a cop at all. Also, Dogman wore a collar, meaning he had an owner. He probably would have worn a superhero costume, kind of like the way the current Dogman wears an outfit similar to Batman's when he goes out fighting crime at night. We know all this because of an interview with the author, where he said that when he was younger, he loved drawing dogs wearing superhero capes. The original Dogman would have walked on 4 legs, unlike the current Dogman who wears a police uniform and walks on 2 legs. We don't know for sure if this early version would still have been created by George and Harold, but it's almost certain it would have, since Captain Underpants' characters come to life around the same time as Dogman. Dave Pilkey once gave an interview to Channel 7 TV in the United States, and the coolest part was that he talked to 2 little girls. During the interview, he said that when he was their age, he had a dog at home. That dog was his very first inspiration for creating Dogman. According to the author, it was a super smart dog who was always getting into mischief, like most dogs do. But this childhood friend with 4 paws was really special and important for Dogman's existence. Could that little dog have been named Greg too? Probably yes. Got a super smart dog at home too? Drop a comment with the hashtag dog so we can meet. Now here's a piece of information so shocking you better hold on tight so you don't fall over. Did you know Dogman wasn't made for everyone to read, and that depending on your age, it could actually be considered illegal? Both the movie and the comics are recommended for kids 8 years and older, and they should be accompanied by their parents. In other words, kids younger than that technically shouldn't be watching or reading it. Maybe you think that's a little unfair, but honestly it's really important because if you're a true Dogman fan, you know there are some heavy topics in the story. For example, Crud's evil actions when Petey was still a kid, Grace's illness, and even awful moments like the car crash that killed Big Jim's parents. That's why one little known fact about Dogman is that both the movie and the comics have a specific age recommendation so you can have fun safely. So remember, no breaking the rules, because we're watching you. If we asked you who created Dogman, you'd probably be a super fan and say George Beard and Harold Hutchins, 2 characters from the Captain Underpants universe. But did you know those 2 kids wrote another story too? There's actually a second comic set in the Captain Underpants world called The Adventures of Uken Gluck. The story kicks off with George and Harold talking about how scientists don't know everything, so they decide to write a tale set in the Stone Age, over 500,000 years ago, where the two best friends are living peacefully, until someone from the future shows up. Basically, a villain from the year 2200 travels back in time through a portal because he wants to steal natural resources from the past. But not just that, this villain runs a super evil company and also wants to capture cavemen to force them into labor in the future. The two main characters, Uken Gluck, get caught up in all of this. Using the same time portal, they end up in the Kung Fu Academy of Master Wong. They spend 7 long years training until they become martial arts masters. The cavemen then return to their time and defeat the villain with help from dinosaurs, girlfriends, and tons of kung fu action. All of this happening inside the Captain Underpants universe, and of course, connected to Dogman as well. Unfortunately, the book is no longer available. Some fans from the Asian community spoke with the publisher and the author, explaining that several parts of the comic misrepresented elements of Kung Fu culture. Because of that, Dave Pilkey decided to stop publishing the book. There had been a chance to merge the Dogman universe with this one, just like they did with Captain Underpants, maybe a time travel adventure where the dog cop goes to the past. But now that can't happen anymore. A lot of fans still defend Uken Gluck, saying the characters had great humor. It told a classic good versus evil story, and any problematic content could be rewritten in future stories. What matters is that even the author's forgotten comics helped inspire Dogman, his biggest success. And we know that because if Dogman today includes deep topics like Petey's father-son relationship with his clone, it's because Dave Pilkey learned a lot from everything that happened. Here's a small detail from the movie that most people missed, even though there's a huge sign giving it away. Dogman wouldn't even exist if Officer Knight had just paid closer attention. In the Dogman movie, the hero is only created because of an explosion caused by Petey. So far, nothing strange, right? But barely anyone noticed that the building where the bomb went off was completely empty. The villainous cat chose an abandoned building. There are some letters in the background that say it clearly, right behind Officer Knight. So if the officer had just read what was going on, there wouldn't have been any problem letting the bomb explode since nobody would have been hurt. It's a pretty wild detail because in the movie universe, Dogman didn't have to exist. But that would have been bad too, because Petey would still be a full-on villain. You probably know that new Dogman comics are being released with Big Jim as the main character. They show more about his childhood, his life with his parents, and even a prophecy told by aliens about him. But do you know why these books were made? In an interview for the YouTube channel Dorian's World, Dave Pilkey said one of the main reasons he decided to write about Big Jim was because of the channel's creator. He said he sometimes watches the videos and wonders, why does this guy like Big Jim so much? That curiosity actually helped inspire the new stories. It just goes to show how being a true fan can even influence the series you love. And speaking of that, we really want a comic that tells us more about Sarah Hadoff's childhood. Hey Dave Pilkey, are you watching us? Of course you are. You know who else could be a fan? You. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Have you ever wondered why Petey is an orange-striped cat? Is he supposed to look like Garfield or something? Actually, no. Dogman is a police officer, right? So he wears a uniform like a real law enforcement officer. Now look closely at Petey. You'll notice he's dressed like a prisoner. The orange color and the stripes are a reference to jail uniforms worn by criminals. It's a shame that Petey's a good guy now, but the costume design trick is still really clever. Did you know that Dogman isn't actually a book? Yep, it's true. A lot of fans talk about Dogman stories as if they're books, but in reality, they're comics known as graphic novels. The big difference is that graphic novels are longer, complete stories packed into one volume, unlike the shorter comic books people are more used to. Of course, none of that takes away from the fun fans have reading it. But it's cool to know exactly what style of art Dogman adventures fall under. Dogman may not be a book, but he's 100% a movie, a video game, and even a stage musical. Yep, there's a comedy musical based on our hero's adventures where Petey creates a clone of himself. You know who we're talking about, Lil Petey. The play is packed with music and dancing, and according to fans, it's super fun. But for now, it's only available in the US. For now. But you can follow us from anywhere to keep learning more about Dogman and tons of other cool stuff. That's why we picked 2 more awesome videos anyone can watch. We'll see you in the next one.